All right, guys, how are you doing? This is Mr. Piorik. I'm wearing a t-shirt. Things must be getting out of control here. Uh, we got just a few more weeks left. What, about 3 weeks left, because you seniors get out a week earlier than the other classes. And then we're done in what has got to be one of the weirdest school years on record. Sorry you had to leave this way, but I'm hoping you're all safe and you're doing well. The big purpose of this video now is to get you prepped and kind of understanding our last big assignment. Other than your one last reading log, which you're turning in this week, all we're really focusing on is research paper. It's due the 29th of May, so the end of this month, and which is coming up pretty fast. It's less than 2 weeks away, and then we'll have a final of a pretty easy, small scale research presentation. Just a couple minute little fun guy. So what I want to do is get you understanding what this research paper is supposed to look like. Today or yesterday, you were supposed to have turned in your outline on Noodle Tools. So you should have a decent amount of research ready to go and ready to write a paper with. But now it comes to the hard part, which is actually taking that stuff and synthesizing it and writing about it in an intelligent way. Let's start by just looking at this prompt again. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I want to walk you through the prompt. Uno momento. Where is it? It's a-coming. I'm coming. Hold on. Let's see. Oh, there it is. Okay. I'm going to share my screen with you now. Was that captivating video, watching me do that on my computer? All right, so here is the prompt. Where are you? Here you are. All right. Make it a little bit more visible. So, research paper. It's a major assignment, due May 29th. Less than 2 weeks from now. You've already been prepping for it, outlining for it. Now we have to sit down and write it. It needs to have a minimum of 5 reputable peer-reviewed sources. So let me go through kind of the minutia. You're graded separately kind of for this stuff. It just means I might take points off of in general because there's MLA issues or length issues, but I might take points off of specific sections of the essay if these problems are bad within that section. But just stuff for you to know. You need to have at least 5 sources for this paper. They need to be reputable, peer-reviewed sources. Peer-reviewed means other people have read it and agreed, yes, this is dependable. It's been fact-checked. If you use anything from the databases from the MCHS library source, then they should all be good. Can you use stuff from the open web, like just Google something? Yes, but then you need to decide whether or not it's a reputable or peer-reviewed source, or at least figure it out. Is it from a dependable publishing organization? Is it just from some random guy that we know nothing about? If it's just some random guy, it's not reputable. We don't know anything about his expertise. Is Wikipedia okay? Not for this. It's not okay for a academic research paper. Neither is about.com or any of these weird sites out there that might have some accurate information, but they just aren't dependable. At length, it needs to be 5 to 7 pages. That doesn't include the works cited page. This is your writing, at least 5 pages. And now when I say 5 pages, I mean 5 full pages. If it's 4.5 pages, I'll make little notes. If it's 4.5 pages, you will be marked down. So what should you do? You should have that sucker probably spilling onto the 6th page. It needs to be MLA format. This is very important when we got page length too, because that means it needs to have 1-inch margins and a certain 12-point font size. That means that 5 pages will be the same amount of writing for everybody. So make sure it's MLA. This is also important when it comes to citation. It needs to be double spaced, 12-point font, Times New Roman. You need a works cited page. That's where you list your sources. That's what your in-text citations are pointing back to. This is general. You should be working to have a paper free of grammar errors. So make sure you're reading it along. You'll be marked down if there's a lot of grammatical issues. And then you need to have in-text parenthetical citations. That means in parentheses, you have the page number and often the author's name of where you got that source or where you got that information. What source is it being connected to? All sources must be properly cited. You need to submit it to turnitin.com before the due date, which is May 29th, 2020. Now, this is such an important moment. I'm going to take it off screen share and look at you. Now, do not plagiarize this paper. Even if you are going pass-fail and you know that you are okay to pass the class because you weren't failing it at the quarter mark, you still might fail it if it's because of plagiarism. As far as I know, they have a caveat in this rule. If you plagiarize and it fails you, you take that F. Don't do it. If you have questions, let me know. Also know this, turnitin.com. I put it up there days before the final due date, and it will show you upon turning in. It might take a couple minutes. It'll show you if there's anything it sees that looks like it's from somewhere else. You can edit that out. You can quote it. You can paraphrase it better. You have the opportunity to double check and make sure there's no plagiarism on that paper. If there is, you can get a 0 on the biggest assignment of the class and fail the class no matter what you had at the quarter. Plagiarism is the one way you can sink your own ship right now, so don't do it. Okay. Let's go back to the prompt because that was a fun little detour. Where'd you go? Here you are. All right, so let's go back now. Let's go into what you're actually writing about. So the content, the prompt is after having the topic approved, which we went through already, you research a topic that's related to the idea of apocalypse. This could be possible real life, quote unquote, end of the world scenarios, historical apocalyptic events, cultural moments that are related to apocalypse, etc. Pretty much we've already gone through all this stuff. You're past this point, but you do need to end up with a focused thesis. But let's talk about that first section of your paper. I'm actually going to assign to you to do the rough version of that before the next time we meet. And the first section is your thesis statement and intro. This is similar to an intro section in your in any kind of essay. It's worth 20 points though, so make sure it's good. This is where you're going to present the answer to your research question, which in the end is going to be what you're going to show me is your thesis. You're going to give some introduction to the topic of your thesis. I'm going to go into this in more detail at the end of this screencast since I'm kind of launching you off into doing this as your homework. All right, then you're going to have the big part of it, the presentation of research. This is the body of the essay, your body paragraphs. This is where you take your research and information and you synthesize it and you use the direct quotes and paraphrasing a presentation of your evidence. So it says this is where you present and explain your research data, your evidence which will be cited in the text and reflected in your works cited page. Cite your sources and utilize different methods of including your research, such as direct quotes and paraphrasing. And then you need to talk about it, analyze it, talk about what's going on that helps show your thesis about this topic. And the data needs to be organized in a way that directly supports your thesis statement. This is worth 60 points itself of the essay. Then the conclusion is also worth 20 points. This is where you summarize your findings. You discuss the ultimate revelatory nature of your research. And you might even call for more research to be done in a certain area within it. You might pose further questions for study. You want to show us what we should have learned and what we should know and what we should think in the future about this topic based on your paper. You don't want to make this a short little one that you barely write anything for. I know many of you do that for your other papers. This is worth 20 points. It's graded by itself. So you could get an F on this part if you got like 2 sentences. So don't do that. Finally, well, not quite finally, but then we have the methodology. This is probably something you guys have never done before. This is a paragraph at the end where you tell me the story of your research. You can write this in first person. What happened while you were researching this topic? Was it easy to find information? What did you have to do to get more information? And this is like a journal. So you might have taken notes while you were doing your research. You can look back at your Noodle tools and talk about it. One thing to get an A on this I'd like you to do is to make sure you mention specific sources that were important for your research. Talk about, what sources really helped you. I didn't know anything about it. Finally, I found this source by this guy, and he really helped me understand how this worked. All right, all of that makes up the 5 to 7 pages. Then at the end, which does not count as part of the page count, is your works cited. You guys have done it before, hopefully. But this is where you list your sources in MLA format. I'll go over this next week when it's time for you to do it. All right. That's a lot of stuff. Here, let's stop share for a moment. Hi, how are you doing? That's a lot of information. Usually we're in class together. We stay in class for a whole week together and we kind of go over everything. Now it's all on this online format and it's kind of a lot to take in. I hope you're all right. Let's keep going though. There's something that I need you to do today that will at least hopefully help you. So I'm going to share my screen again. This is on Canvas. It is a packet for writing your research paper. So here we go. Here we go, writing a research paper. How long is this packet? This packet is 20 pages. Well, guess what? You don't have to read the whole thing. There's lots of things that tell you, but it's not bad to read the whole thing. You don't have as much access to me, the teacher, during this time, and this is really a nice how-to packet on writing a research paper. So for those of you taking it seriously, which should be all of you, this is the biggest assignment of the class, you can really look over this thing. But I've also made looking through it a little bit easier by giving you some questions on the packet. You might go, why does that make it easier, Mr. Pioric? Well, hold on. I'm going to show you the questions and then explain. All right. Here are the research questions. We need to shift them over a little bit. Come here, you. All right. Hey. I don't know why it's so skinny. Whoop. All right. Now, look, I've actually put page numbers and then questions. I'm going to have you do this on Canvas. Just go through it, and what it allows you to do is it allows you to just skim through the packet and look for these things. They're not hard things to find. And you can even skip pages. Look, I have 617, look for these things. Then 619, you can skip page 618. There's even pages before this I have you skip. But this is like essential stuff that I really want you to know and notice, and I want that you've seen it and seen where you can find explanations of it. And one thing I really like about this packet, I've been using it for years, is it has a sample essay in it. It's underneath a writer's model section, a sample student essay, and then I have you do these questions with it, so that you kind of, number one, show that you did look at it, but also, it's all stuff that I want you to know. So I went back here to the sample packet. Here's this writer's model. I don't know why I'm having trouble saying those words. Sample essay. Why is it good? One big reason it's good is that all these parenthetical citations, all these in-text citations, they are all done in correct MLA format. Use this as a model. There's lots of things you can look up on MLA format. That's fine, but at least you know you have this. This is a essay somebody wrote about Robert Frost. It has nothing to do with apocalyptic stuff, but it's a good research paper that shows you how to write these things. It keeps going, and then the questions I give you ask you to look at certain things so you know how to cite stuff, so you know what things look like. I'm not even asking you to necessarily read through the whole essay, although that's a good idea, but I do ask you to look for things in it so you can see how they did stuff. Here's a copy of their works cited, by the way. It's not double spaced, which they say here because just for the sake of space, but this is generally what a works cited looks like. It would just be double spaced. Otherwise, it would look, for the most part, the same. So all that stuff is in this packet. It's a really helpful packet. So I really want you to look at it, and that's why I'm giving you these questions that you have to go over with them. So that should hopefully be helpful. So before we meet again, there's a couple things you have to do. One is look through that packet and answer the questions. That'll all be on Canvas. Then also, I want you to have written a rough intro paragraph, or like that's pretty much, usually it's just a decent sized paragraph, a rough intro section of for your paper. Let me share a little screen with you just so I can write out the 3 most important things for you to be looking for. Let me get back to the old Zoom room here. There we go. All right, let me share this little document with you. Oh, there we go. All right, so what should be in the introduction section of my research paper? Oh, that's a good question. I think there should be 3 things for the most part. What should be the first thing? A hook, or an engaging opening. Find some way to give a fun opening, a strong opening to your paper. You can be creative here. We've done it a bit with our interpretive essays before, but start with some sort of engaging opening to introduce your topic. 2, what else should you have? Well, you need to give me background on the topic. Explain to me what I need to know before going into your specific thesis. So maybe you're talking about the hidden danger of apocalyptic fungi. So there's fungus out there that's going to kill us all. And I'm like, what? I don't even know what you're talking about. So your thesis might be about how it's actually dangerous and apocalyptic, but before that, give me some info about fungi, or at least this dangerous kind. So then that'll give me background so that you can then give me your thesis. So you have 1, 2, 3. You have the hook, you have the background on the topic, and then you give me your thesis. That's what should be in the introduction section. This should be a decent sized paragraph. Would you like to see a sample? You would? All right, I can show you one. All right, here we go. So this was by one of my favorite students ever, Sarah Student. Her last name, she changed it to Student because she was such a good student. But she wrote this for me, old Sarah Student. She called it The 4 Horsemen of the Great Depression. I went, that's an interesting title. By the way, let's just pause there. What did she not call it? Research essay. Boo! Did she call it title? No, that would be terrible too. Did she call it apocalypse research? No, boo! She came up with a catchy title. Now, what this young lady did was write about how the Great Depression can be compared to the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. That's an interesting idea. Let's read her introduction. The Great Depression is often compared to an apocalypse due to the severe rise in unemployment and poverty it created, but rarely is it equated to the literal apocalypses of biblical origin. This is her hook. It's pretty good. It could be a little more catchy, but we go, what? You're comparing the Great Depression to the Bible? That's interesting. So it might catch your interest, but could maybe have a little more pizzazz to it. Let's keep going. So this is the hook. Some may think that it's a stretch to compare the Great Depression to the Book of Revelation from the New Testament. What many don't realize is that most of the unfavorable characteristics of the Great Depression are directly related to the apocalyptic events in the Book of Revelation. They are not directly related. They are similar or can be compared, but there's no direct causal relation as far as I know. Generated by a crash in the stock market in 1929, the Great Depression lasted for an entire decade. The United States endured many types of hardships in order to survive. She's giving me background on what the Great Depression is. So that's what I wanted to show you. Yes, I know what it is, but don't take that for granted. Give me the background anyway. In the Book of Revelation, a book of the New Testament, Jesus sends down 4 horsemen to reign upon the earth and ensue chaos. More background. Now we know what the 4 horsemen are. Okay, so I go, I get it. I know what the Great Depression is, and I know what a 4 horsemen is. Now we get the thesis. So this is background. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse from the Book of Revelation, war, famine, pestilence, and death, can be compared to the Great Depression as each aspect was present during the U.S.'s economic crisis. So that's kind of an interesting thesis. It ends up being a really well-organized paper. One reason it's going to be a well-organized paper is that we already kind of know the organization for it. She's going to compare the Great Depression to these different horsemen of the apocalypse. So that's kind of a handy thing whenever your thesis already explains what how you're going to organize your paper and what we should be looking for. All right, this is a pretty good intro paragraph. Yours might be a little longer. I wouldn't get any shorter than this, but I thought it was pretty good. I'm ready to learn about it. Once we get into it, you're going to see that she does a really good job of talking about it. I can't post this one because I don't have permission to, but I think it's okay for me to show it as an example. So there you go. And you can look at this again or pause it on your video here. Now, what else do I need to tell you? So I want to show you the research prompt one more time, just before I go. I want to share it with you real quick, because on the second page of the prompt is a rubric. Shows how much each section's worth, stuff I'm looking for in each section, the total, and it also lets you know, hey, if you decide not to write a methodology, you're losing 10 points off the bat. You'll just get a straight 0 on it. So on that section. All right, let me know if you have any questions. I know it's rough to be doing a big new assignment when we can't see each other, but do your best. Just whatever you do, do not plagiarize on it. I don't want to go through failing you at the last minute. You don't want to go through it. If you have any questions, just ask me, and we can figure it out. Otherwise, we'll have a Zoom meeting later in the week, and we'll have our final book club then. We'll talk more research paper then. In the meantime, email me if you have any questions. All right, guys, take care.